Oh, rolling in. Whew. I'm like a stunt man with these math videos. Mr. Thomas back for some more quadratic function graphing, but this time we're doing 4.2 standard form of a quadratic function. The objective, to graph quadratic functions written in standard form. So in 4.1, we learned what's called vertex form. That is the easiest form to graph. Where you're just dropping numbers, switching signs, you just find the vertex, and you can move on. This one's a little bit more difficult. So let's look at it. So if it's in blue, remember, write that down in your notes. So standard form. And if I were you, and maybe in my notebook, I would have like quadratic functions, and maybe even put side by side vertex form and standard form. Whatever, just do whatever helps you the best. Notice it's written with the highest exponent first, so x squared, x, and then c would just be a number. And in this, it kind of tells us what some main features of this. I'm just going to highlight a few, but notice we have the squared. If you see that squared, it's going to be a U shape, or the technical term is called a parabola. But it's a U shape. Just like with vertex form, this number in front of the x squared, that's going to let us know if it's a U up or U down. Then the axis of symmetry. So this is how you're going to graph. So in order to graph it, you got to find the vertex. All right, you got to find the vertex, and then we're going to use the vertex and then the y-intercept to help us graph it. So this is how it works. In order to find the vertex, you have to find what's called the axis of symmetry. Remember, the axis of symmetry is just the x part of the vertex. And so it's going to be x equals negative b over 2a. So you'll take this number, make it negative, and multiply, and then put that over 2 times whatever a is. That's going to give you the x. Once you get the x, you just plug the x in right there and solve, and that will give you, remember, this is kind of like a y. You solve that, and it's going to give you the vertex. Once you get that, you will just use the c to know where the graph is supposed to cross the y-intercept, and that should give you enough information to graph it. So let's look at a couple examples. Notice I put this here. That's the axis of symmetry. That's a key starting point. So what is the graph of y equals x squared plus 2x plus 3? Well, before I even draw my graph, I need to find the vertex. So I'm gonna go and just label these steps. Find the x. Okay, find the x. If it helps, what you can also do is, if you want to like come over here and say, okay, I'm gonna need to know my vertex, and then I'm gonna need to know my y-intercept. Okay, that's what you're gonna need to graph, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, and then we'll be able to graph it here in a little bit. All right, so I need to find the x by plugging stuff in over here. So negative b, so x equals negative b, which is going to be a 2, negative 2 over 2a. And so that, remember, that's an invisible 1. So 2 times 1. So I just simplify this. 2 times 1 is 2. So I can say x equals negative 2 over positive 2. Negative 2 divided by positive 2 is negative 1. So I can say x equals negative 1. I'm just going to circle that. I'm going to circle that, negative 1, and then I'm going to put that negative 1 there. All right, the second step, step number 2, is substitute x to find the y, okay? So you're going to substitute the x in here to find the y. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to have y equals, and then if I see an x, I'm putting in a -1. So -1, uh-oh, my calibration's all messed up. That's a -1, it looks like a squiggly. Plus 2 times -1 plus 3. All right, so now I'm just going to break this down and simplify. So -1 times -1 becomes what? 2, oh, this is plus 2 times -1 becomes -2. And you can, I'm going to go ahead and erase that positive sign, because this just becomes -2. And then plus 3. All right, and then you just simplify from there. 1 minus 2 is -1. -1 plus 3 is +2. So y equals +2. All right, I have my vertex, now I just need my y-intercept. And if you remember, the y-intercept is the c, okay? All right, and so my y-intercept is at y equals 3. All right, now with this information, I should be able to graph this. So, all right, and before we even look at it, we know that this is going to be a U-shaped or a parabola because it's squared, and we know it's going to be going up because this number is positive. So, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to find my vertex. It's at -1, +2. Draw my dot. And then this is where, on MathXL, you should just be able to find the y-intercept, and it should work. I'm going to put my y-intercept at 3. Alright? And then that is going to be what my graph looks like on that side. And notice I just went over 1, so you could up 1 over 1 right there. And you'll notice also the kind of slope that matches up with the kind of slope, up 1 over 1. And so that would be my graph. All right, so you're finding the x, you're substituting the x to find the y, and then the third step, find the y-intercept, and then you'll be able to graph. All right, so let's move on to the next problem, and I'm just going to erase some of the stuff because all of it should. I may have to just erase my little graph. All right, I'm going to keep those steps alive for us, so I don't have to rewrite all the steps. All right, so I'll go ahead and draw my graph again. So we know that this is a quadratic because of the exponent up here. So we have y equals 2x squared plus 10x plus 7. Since that exponent on that first x is a 2, we know it's going to be u either up or down. And since we know this is positive, we know it's going to be u up. So if you wanted to, I know I didn't do it initially on the last one, but we know this is going to be a u up. All right, so now we just need to find the vertex and the y-intercept to graph. All right, and if you remember from the last one, you could also use the kind of slope, but I want to show you a couple different methods. So, first thing, let's find the x value of the vertex. So, I know it's going to be x equals -b, which in this case is 10. So, -10 over 2a. So, 2 times 2 right there. I'm going to simplify this. This is going to be -10 over 4. And then I ask myself, can that simplify even more? And it can. It can go to x equals -5/2, or that can also be -2.5. Okay, so whatever you want to do, whatever's easiest for you to keep in your mind. I'm going to go ahead and just say -2.5, 2.5. that is easier for me to understand, but -5/2 may be easier for you. The next step, I'm going to substitute the x to find the y. So I'm going to rewrite this. Y equals 2 -2.5 squared plus 10 times -2.5 plus 7. Now you may need a calculator, all right, for some of this. So like for this, I may need a calculator to know what this, and depending on how good your calculator is, I did not grab one of the big fancy ones. You may have to kind of just do it bit by bit. So I'm just going to do negative 2.5 times -2.5. And that gives me 25 over 4. All right. And this is where you can use fractions where sometimes it may be helpful. But I'm going to do 25 times 25ths over 4 times 2. And that gives me 25/2. So that would end up being 12.5, all right, plus 10 times -2.5. Once again, look, there's no shame in using your calculator, right? I'd rather have you get it right than try to be awesome and do it without it. So this is going to be -25 minus 25. So 12.5 minus 25 plus 7. Now, once again, you can use your calculator for this. I don't mind. All right, so I'm just going to say 12.5 minus 25 plus 7 equals -11/2, or, oh, that's y equals. So it equals -11/2, or that could be written as -5.5. All right, -5.5. Now, I have my vertex. The last step is I'm going to find my y-intercept, which is that right there. So I'm going to say y equals 7. I don't necessarily need to have it because I have my kind of slope, but I like to have it there. So I'm going to find -2.5 minus, or -5.5 on the vertex. So -2.5 is about halfway between the 2 and 3. Then my -5.5 is going to be half. Oh, I don't have a sixth. There we go. All right. And so I'm going to have it about halfway right there. This is not perfect, but that's my vertex. Then, remember, my u is going to be going up. And so I'm going to use the kind of slope. I can use the kind of slope to graph, and I can also have my y equals 7, which I need to add a couple more notches up here. So I know that the graph is, it's going to be a pretty skinny graph because it's not crossing the y-axis till up here. So I'm going to go use my kind of slope to help me out on this. I'm going to go up 2 over 1. Kind of difficult working with the halves, but it's going to look something like that. And then when you draw the u, all right, that's where it's going to cross the y-axis. And notice it's pretty skinny u. All right, my axis of symmetry is the x. All right, I have a minimum down there at -5.5. All right, and that is it. All right, that is graphing using standard form. This homework that's on here is actually from 4.1 and 2. You should have already done 4.1. So today you're doing 4.2. Reach out to me, Mr. Thomas, or Miss Collette if you need help. Goodbye.